Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to make a quick video because I was learning about the adaptive cycle and I thought I could create this introductory video explaining what I've learned so far. And so the adaptive cycle is a conceptual model that is used to help people understand how complex systems, or at least the process of complex systems. And so there are different phases in which this complex system can go through, in which it creates its own structure, how that structure can collapse, and then how it reorganizes itself, or at least the process of this. This is a diagram that I like, and I'm going to be using the example of the Roman Empire. Societies are also complex systems. Obviously, the adaptive cycle is relevant for ecological sciences, since ecosystems are complex systems, and so we need to analyze the way in which those are able to structure themselves. But I think talking about societies is a little easier to understand in the way in which societies are able to grow and collapse. So the first cycle, or the first stage of the cycle, is the R stage, which is growth. And so this represents when there's an area with resources in which people can come in and exploit them. And so the example for the Roman Empire is when people first established the city of Rome, there were natural resources and people came in and started using those. And as the population grows, it moves into the K phase, which is the conservation phase. And I just want to be clear about the y-axis, because in this graph it's labeled as potential, which is a little ambiguous, but basically it's supposed to refer to the amount of resources that are being used. And so you could also say the y-axis is natural capital. And so in the exploitation phase, for example, there are a lot of resources to be used, but they are not currently being used, and so potential is low. But then as they move into the conservation phase, the existing open niches of resources start to be used and interlocked within this socioeconomic system, or this socio-ecological system. And so the potential is high because the resources are being used and efficiently recycled. So it's not even that they are being used up, it's just that they are used by the system. And so as the society grows, it becomes much more interconnected and the structure becomes much more rigid. And so I think the main takeaway that I want to emphasize here within the adaptive cycle is the idea of having too much interconnectedness and rigidity in the system. And so that's the crucial point where, after the large amount of growth leading into the conservation stage, everything is locked in a certain structure and it is defined in that structure just due to how complex the system has grown to be. So for the example of the Roman Empire, it started as just a small city, but coming to the entire empire that's spanning like the whole continent, all the interconnected parts of the system, the connections are becoming a lot more strong. And because of that, the whole fragility of the system has increased. There's not as much resilience to the system. And so, of course, when the empire expands too much, it collapses. And so that's the release phase, or the omega phase, in which this very complex interwoven system is disturbed. And since it doesn't have a lot of resilience, it collapses. And of course, we all know that the Roman Empire collapsed due to multiple disturbances to its structure. And then the last phase is moving into an alpha phase, which is critical, the adaptive cycle phase of the adaptive cycle, where the system is able to reorganize itself in a new way. So, for example, in the Roman Empire, when it fell, it didn't move back into the Roman Empire. When it restructured, it became the Middle Ages. In this diagram, we can see how the reorganization phase goes back into the exploitation phase. And so it's a cycle where, even though the system fails, there is the ability for it to reorganize, and the interconnectedness can increase once again over time. And so this is a very basic ecological concept where ecosystems are able to regrow from the ashes. You also see the idea of adaptive cycles being interconnected at multiple levels through the idea of panarchy. And so this diagram, for example, shows that adaptive cycles occur at multiple levels, such as the local, the regional, the global level, and of course they all influence each other. And I think the last thing to note is that this is more of a metaphor and it shouldn't be taken so literally. And so although this and all of the diagrams show this specific progression as a loop-de-loop or a figure eight, the system could technically move between any of the phases at any time. It doesn't have to be in any specific order, but this is the order and general trend that people have observed within complex systems.